On this episode of Just Informed Talk, the latest new Q posts seem to want us to ask these questions. Is Ruth Bader Ginsburg sicker than we think? Are there FISA warrants out against the deep state? What do Ted Cruz and President Trump have in common? And the real story of what happened with Edward Snowden, Russia, and the CIA. Hi, I'm Craig, and welcome to Just Informed Talk. I always start by saying thank you to all my subscribers. If you haven't come here and hit that button, please come here to the landing page, click the big red subscribe button, make sure you hit the bell for notifications so you're notified when these videos get posted. So, everything I just went through in that opening, we're going to be covering here in this episode, plus much, much more. And in order to get to that, we're going to have to start where we left off, which is right here at Q Post 2651, and we are starting with Q Post 2652. Now, if you guys want to get caught up to where we're at, I always encourage everyone to come back here to the landing page, watch these last few videos. They're going to get you caught up to where we're at. Plus, if you're scratching your head going, what is QAnon and what is the Great Awakening and what's this guy talking about, watch this video right here. It's What is QAnon and the Great Awakening, and it'll give you all that information to let you know kind of what it is, how to get involved, where to find the information, how to do the research. All of that stuff is answered there in that video for you. So we're going to pick right back up where we left off. Today, an anon post on the Q board. Q couldn't get the page to load, or this is from yesterday, excuse me. And this was a reference to the fact that Q basically flooded the servers and did a DDoS attack, basically, and shut down the website, which he was trying to point us to, which was it was about the government foreign assistance expenditures. It's foreignassistance.gov / something or other. And yeah, right here, /explore. And this is what happened. Q was telling us that the reason you couldn't get on, and I had trouble loading the web page last night when I was making that video. Obviously, it was because there was 2.2 million attempted access within 1 to 2 minutes, and the site crashed. So if you're doubting that there's a lot of people here following this information, then you're not really following that closely, are you? So the next one here is talking about Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and there's some pretty incredible stuff that Q shares with us here, and we're going to read right through it. It says, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, in the metaphorical kill box here, it's the brackets. Why was she selected? Who appointed her? Remember her story? Reference 230-page book called Sex Bias in the U.S. Code, published in 1977 by the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights. Highlights. Called for the sex integration of prisons and reformatories so that conditions of imprisonment, security, and housing could be equal. She explained, quote, if the grand design of such institutions is to prepare inmates for return to the community as persons equipped to benefit from and contribute to civil society, then perpetuation of single-sex institutions should be rejected, unquote, from page 101. Called for the sex integration of Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts because they, quote, perpetuate stereotyped sex roles, unquote, page 145. Insisted on sex integrating college fraternity, or, quote, college fraternity and sorority chapters, unquote, and replacing them with, quote, college social societies, page 169. Cast constitutional doubt on the legality of, quote, Mother's Day and Father's Day as separate holidays, unquote. Called for the reducing the age of consent for sexual acts to people who are, quote, less than 12 years old, unquote. These people are sick, man. Asserted that laws against, quote, bigamous persons cohabitating with more than one woman and women cohabitating with a bigamist are unconstitutional. Objected to laws against prostitution because, quote, prostitution as a consensual act between adults is arguably within the zone of privacy protected by recent constitutional decisions, unquote. Ginsburg wrote that the Mann Act, which punishes those who engage in interstate sex traffic of women and girls, is, quote unquote, offensive. Such acts should be considered within the zone of privacy. What? This is crazy. And I've actually looked at these papers before, so I know what this is referring to. It says, demanded that we firmly, quote, firmly reject draft or combat exemption for women, stating, or unquote, stating, quote, women must be subject to the draft if men are, unquote. But she added, quote, the need for affirmative action and for transition measures is particularly strong in the uniformed services, unquote. The next one, an indefatigable censor, Ginsburg listed hundreds of sexist words that must be eliminated from all statutes. Among words she found offensive were man, woman, man-made, mankind, husband, wife, mother, father, sister, brother, son, daughter, serviceman, longshoreman, postmaster, watchman, seamanship, and to man a vessel. Wanted he, she, him, her, his, and hers to be dropped down the memory hole. They must be replaced by he, shim, or he, she, her, him, and her, his. And federal statutes must use the bad grammar of plural constructions to avoid third person singular pronouns. This is really groundbreaking stuff that she was working on here. Condemned the Supreme Court's ruling in Harris v. McRae and claimed that taxpayer-funded abortions should be constitutional. And then Q gives us this link to this article right here, which actually talks about how the senators overlooked this radical record that Ruth Bader Ginsburg has. And it was actually, I think that the what Q put this up there for is because a lot of the stuff that he was quoting were highlighted in this article. So it was possibly the source for that information, right? So Q is sourcing the information. Q goes on to say, who are the doctors currently treating Ruth Bader Ginsburg? What other political, former, current, senior political heads are they affiliated with? What off-market drugs are being provided to Ruth Bader Ginsburg in order to sustain minimum daily function? What is the real diagnosis of Ruth Bader Ginsburg? Who is managing her care? Who is really managing her care? The clock is ticking. Panic in D.C. Q. All right, guys. So let's break this down a little bit. We'll go point by point. Why was she selected? I think that is self-evident when you read what she wrote here in this Sex Bias in the U.S. Code. This was she was one of the authors, or the main author there, and she wrote all this. So that's why she was selected. It's her ideology that they wanted. That's why she was put on the Supreme Court, because she believes in things apparently such as lowering the age of consent to 12 years old, less to 12 years old, which is for sexual acts. That's just disgusting to me. And then all of these, complete, in my opinion, just arbitrary attempts to rewrite history and to continue to create this politically correct atmosphere where you can't say, you can't even use common language. You're going to have to rewrite the whole vernacular of every word ever used in history to suit the SJW call to become more tolerant and inclusive. And it's just, to me, it's a waste of time, and it doesn't affect a problem that actually negatively affects people. You know what I mean? It's like you're sitting on the Titanic, and instead of trying to shovel water out, you're repositioning the deck chairs. I think that's like a common thing people say. It's the same thing. You're not addressing any of the real issues. You're just basically doing something that has no effect. Anyway, that is what came from her. It says, who appointed her? Of course, she was appointed by Bill Clinton. Yes, that was who nominated and appointed her. And you just have to remember her history by looking through all of these quotes from this work that she was an author of. Now, this is where it gets a little interesting, and I had to kind of scan the Anon boards to see, if anybody had any insights in this, and there were actually some insights. But first of all, it says, who are the doctors currently treating Ruth Bader Ginsburg? Well, there's a few different doctors, I'm sure. You have the doctors who were there when she underwent her surgery for cancer, which was not too long ago. She had these nodules removed from her lungs, and for that, apparently, she was put into the Sloan Kettering hospital, which is in New York City, or Sloan Kettering, hospital, where she had a lobectomy, and that's where they basically removed the nodules from her lungs. So that's who I think. But then there's other articles and other pieces of evidence that talk about who her doctors are, and we're going to look at those in a second. So the next one says, what other political, former, current, senior political heads are they affiliated with? And I think that there's a staff that there was a few different people who found a few different things. All right. So with that being said, obviously we're getting new Q posts as we go here. So you guys are in it for the long haul with me tonight. We're going to keep getting them because they keep popping up as we go. So that's why this screen just changed the way it did. But this is pretty incredible. And we're going to look at that too. I think I have something up here. So it talks about her health, and it talks about where she's gone through all these different treatments. She's had colon cancer, apparently, which she used radiation therapy. She's had surgery for pancreatic cancer, and she had a stent put in her right coronary artery, and she's fractured her ribs, and now she's getting a lobectomy for these cancerous nodules on her lungs. And I'm not saying anything, but I know a lot of people who've had just one of these things: lung cancer, pancreatic, and colon, and they did not survive. So it's kind of it's just baffling to me how this woman has, since 1999, had all of these different bouts of cancer, yet she comes out completely fine. And Q alludes to something in here that I think is a question, I guess. I mean, it's really crazy. But it says, what off-market drugs are being provided to RBG in order to sustain minimum daily function? What is the real medical diagnosis of Ruth Bader Ginsburg? Who is managing her care? Who is really managing her care? So these questions are all basically ones I don't have answers to yet, but I think you guys can help out in the comments. And I've read a lot of different theories. Some people think it's the adrenochrome, which is something that's popular in the communities. At least people think that it's a drug taken by the elite. I don't have any necessary proof other than I've read a lot of articles that have made the insinuation that the elite use this adrenaline like a drug, and it gets them high, and when they take it, it somehow affects them as a drug would, and that is something that they use amongst themselves. I don't know if that's what that is. I don't know if it's also or some, there's been, Q has said in the past that basically Q made the insinuation that there's a possibility that cures for a lot of these terminal illnesses exist, but they're not widely available for different reasons, whether it's because a company thinks they can make more money one way or the other. They can make more money when people are sick than when people are healthy, or if it's because the drug companies don't want to, if they reveal one medicine, it may make a whole bunch of their other medicines obsolete and could cause them to go bankrupt. Whatever it is, if that is true, if those drugs do exist, then that's just something to me that there's no excuse. I don't care if all the drug companies had to go out of business. If you have the cure, share the cure. And anybody watching this video, if you disagree with that sentiment, okay, I don't know what to say to you other than that's my opinion, and I'll stand by that no matter what. And then it talks about what's her real medical diagnosis. Obviously, I'm not a doctor. I cannot diagnose her. I don't have that capacity as an individual. But other people, doctors, have speculated. I'm not going to get into that much speculation other than to say people have said that when you have what she has, which are these cancerous nodules on the lungs, that usually the the forecast for your ability to stay alive is not too good, especially at an older age, where you're susceptible to all types of other things. But that, I think, what is kind of being suggested here. And then when it asks who's managing her care and who is really managing her care, I think this is like saying basically that she's going to these doctors, maybe at Sloan Kettering, maybe at other places, but then there's some other entity that is administering her care. Now it says the clock is ticking, and that was something I thought was really interesting, which it reminds me of this picture. You guys remember this picture? Well, if you look at it, the dial is exactly at 3:15. And we already looked at what kind of watch this was. It's a really expensive, like $12,000 IWC Schoschen watch. And but this 3:15, what is 3:15? I don't know. What is 3:15? Oh, look at this. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, born March 15th or 3:15. I don't know. Don't know. Anyway, that's what you guys can do, because then after that, basically it says the clock is ticking and there's a panic in DC, which we already know. So we'll just jump right into the next one. So the next one is this Axios article, of course, which talks about how President Trump has said he says appointing acting cabinet heads grants more flexibility. And of course, we already knew that because it's the Scaramucci model. You bring a guy in like for instance, what happened with Anthony Scaramucci. You bring him in for 10 days, and we got rid of Reince Priebus, and a bunch of other people, I believe, at least. Because look, this is literally how it works. You bring them in, they basically come in, you're out of here. It forces people to resign. It's a great idea. But it says public opinion optics do not matter. Temps can be very dangerous to those who are targeted. Q. So first of all, the Scaramucci model, like I said, is Anthony Scaramucci came into work for President Trump for about 10 days as the director of communications. And in that time, he was able to basically tick a lot of people off. And in doing so, it made a lot of people leave, including, I believe it was Reince Priebus at the time, who ended up resigning as a matter of this issue. It's the same principle now, I think, that you have with Matthew Whitaker as the acting attorney general and in other head positions and other positions that are out there. So that is what I think it's referring to. And then when it says public opinion and optics do not matter, it's basically just saying that if you're a temporary appointment, you're an acting director or acting attorney general, you have the flexibility to be, you're not basically working for the political points, the political juice to keep going forward. You're just there to do a job, and to effectively do that job, you have to do what you have to do. And that's what it means when it says temps can be very dangerous to those who are targeted. So we'll have to see who gets fired or who ends up resigning because of like Matthew Whitaker and other positions where we've had these changes, like the Mick Mulvaney, now the chief of staff, I believe, for President Trump. So we'll see. We'll see. All right, next one. How many authorized FISA umbrella surveillance warrants targeting those who illegally targeted blank are currently active? Upstream collection can be very revealing. When you no longer control the levers of power, do Five Eyes allies buckle and cooperate in order to preserve and maintain their future? Germany losing stranglehold on EU. The future will not repeat the past. The clock is ticking. Q. Guys, this is exactly what we've been talking about here for quite some time now, but this is even better. What Q is saying is that they have apparently FISA warrants going on against the deep state right now, and they're authorized and they're warranted, right? Because think about it. If all of the stuff we've been covering here, in fact, is true, every piece of information that we've been going over is true about FISAgate and about Strzok and Page and Comey and Clapper and Brennan and all of these people, this is Q confirming, like, hey, we're getting upstream collection on them. Now, the difference between upstream collection and downstream collection would be, like, upstream, as I understand it, is they have access to the actual hard lines, meaning the fiber optic stations where they're these choke points where information goes in and out. If you can tap into that, you can see everything. There's nothing you can't see. Whereas like downstream would be more of going to Google and using like that Prism search, keyscore search, or X keyscore or whatever it was, where you could just basically Google and it will tell you everything, all the public and private stuff. So that would be the difference. The upstream collection means that they're literally tapping into the wires, as President Trump would put it, the data backbone, if you will. That's where they go to get the information, as opposed to getting it from, Google, Facebook, Twitter, and other tech companies. So that's what that means. And then when it says, when you no longer control the levers of power, do the Five Eyes allies buckle? This is perfect, guys. This is exactly what we've been talking about. The Five Eyes, what were they doing? The Five Eyes was just a way for all these 5 countries to get together and spy on each other and share that information and then avoid being subject to their own law. That's what it would seem it was all about. There didn't seem to be any other purpose besides, if I'm a U.S. citizen, right, and the government wants to spy on me, but they don't want to leave a trail, they would go ask Australia, hey, can you go look at this guy and then share that information with us? And then there's no paper trail, and then there's nobody accountable, and then there's no way to figure out what's actually going on, right? But did they buckle and cooperate after the pressure that was put on them? Of course they did, because they want to preserve and maintain their future. They're not going to put their necks on the line for people who are moving out of power, like the former ruling class in our country, the political elites who basically did all of these things that we're uncovering now, including the Spygate, FISAgate against the president, and much, much more with the Clinton Foundation, Uranium One, all this other stuff, right? We're at a point now where we're at a precipice moving into the future, and people are making the decision to either, stay with the sinking ship or join the winning battle. And that's the choice that they have. It's a very clear-cut choice, and they're going to have to start making it sooner than later as this continues to develop. So then it says Germany is losing the stranglehold on the EU. Of course, Germany has been at the center of everything because they do yield so much influence over the EU. They're so intrinsically tied to it. Their intelligence gathering is basically centered around maintaining that power in the EU. They had the most dominant economy going in. They think they still probably do, and that's where their power lies. But they're slowly losing it, not just because of nationalism, as the media wants to portray it. It's not just that. It's because the people are waking up and understanding that the unelected bureaucracy in the EU is imposing taxes and regulation that are antithetical to what any modern democratic system should have, because there is no access to representation. There's no access to direct democracy. Even though we are an indirect democracy here in our country, where we elect officials who go and legislate on our behalf, we're still closer to a direct democracy than what they have in the actual EU, which is basically the countries have their political systems, the individual countries, but then they submit to the EU, and the EU is basically nominated. They're not elected. They're placed, the officials there, and most of them can be traced back to old blue blood royal lines in Europe and these social progressives who are just out there, right? And that's what the people are standing up to against in the EU. And it's not because they have some desire to lash out against. It's literally just standing up for the right to not be taxed without representation, to not be regulated and told what to do by an unelected entity that really you don't have much say in what's going on. And that's the way I see it. If you guys over there in the EU have a comment, leave it down in the comments. I'd love to hear it. The future will not repeat the past, and the clock is ticking. So obviously the clock's ticking, meaning there's something coming up big, and the future will not repeat the past. That's fairly obvious. I don't need to break that down for you. Now the next one here is President Trump. Over here, it's this Twitter status from Breaking 911, and President Trump is basically saying that he may declare a national emergency depending on what's going on in the next few days. And that's exactly what he says in this video. He basically says that if he may declare a national emergency. Well, what happens if he declares a national emergency? Guess what? The wall's getting built, right? Because as we talked about, Posse Comitatus Act, the authorities that were granted in the revisions back in 2006 and 2007 would stipulate that the president can declare a state of emergency and then use the military to basically work on American soil if the conditions were met that needed to be there, and that would seem that the conditions have been met, that there's an imminent danger to our sovereign territory. And if you declare it a state of emergency, then you can say, all right, well, we're going to send the Army Corps of Engineers, the Red Castle, from Greencastle, Indiana, down to the border to build us a nice wall. And I'm going to be quite pleasantly happy when that happens. Quite pleasant and happy when that happens. So Anons knew. Yeah, we knew. Yeah. Not bragging, but we knew. All right, now here's where it gets crazy. I mean, this is all crazy usually, but this is where it gets even crazier. So first of all, the next post says, when will the public discover that Ted Cruz was also illegally surveilled in pre-POTUS Republican nomination? CIA illegal surveillance of members of Congress, CIA illegal surveillance of members of the press, CIA illegal surveillance Senate Intelligence Committee. And then it gives these articles. First, this article from The Guardian, which is talking about this constitutional crisis. It is a long read, but it talks about how in the lead up to the report on torture that was supposed to be given by the Congress, that the CIA was actually hacking into their computers and basically spying on them to see what they were going to say, right? And then the CIA actually accused the legislators of taking classified documents, and then they were like, "Well, how would you know?" And they're like, "Well, we were just spying on you." And you're like, "Okay, great, good. I'm happy that we're in agreement, right?" And then it's also Q gives us this New York Times article which talks about how the inquiry by the CIA affirms it spied on the Senate panel, where they were like, "Yeah, we spied on you. Yeah, no big deal, guys. We just had to make sure you weren't going to say anything that was going to damage our reputation. You know how that is." Just normal CIA, normal day at work for CIA. Normal day at work. It says, who ordered the surveillance? What justification was provided to authorize surveillance of elected officials? Surveillance fall under scope of FISA warrant or internal to department or outsourced to Five Eyes. Reality check. Friend or foe? We all spy on each other. Should we be spying on ourselves? Should we be asking or tasking others to spy on ourselves in order to avoid U.S. law? Was Five Eyes established and designed by the intelligence community as a back-channel surveillance apparatus to avoid domestic laws, triggers, and congressional Senate oversight? What key logs exist to monitor Five Eyes intelligence collection? What ability do former government officials have regarding ability to access classified level Five Eyes offshore data? How did HRC gain access to the highest classified special access programs, closed system access, and able to transfer to remote home server? Question above should scare every single American. How did China locate primary CIA assets within China 187? Money buys power. No punishment, Brennan, by Hussein administration regarding surveillance of Senate, etc. Logical thinking, why? And then it gives this McClatchy article, which talks about how the Department of Justice got a referral about the surveillance that the CIA did into the legislators in Congress, and the Department of Justice declined to pursue allegations against the CIA. Yep, no consequences for them. You can go ahead and if you're in the CIA, you could just spy on our government. You can spy on our legislators. You can spy on everyone, right? You're not accountable to anybody. Nobody's going to pursue allegations against you. I guess it's just free for all, right? Just whatever, spy on whoever you want. Who cares, right? That seems to be what that's saying. I said that, kind of sarcastically, but kind of not. It says, Justice Department declines to pursue fake news media, limits exposure to public. When did Snowden breach NSA and publicly release cripple intel gathering ability NSA? NSA targeted. Where did Snowden work prior to NSA contractor? Except. What senior level government CIA official recruited Snowden for NSA contractor off target position? Post public release of classified NSA Pro Uranium 1. Where is Snowden today? What country was involved in Uranium 1? If real target country was Venezuela or Ecuador, why didn't Snowden take a direct flight from Hong Kong to those locations? How many direct flights run daily from Hong Kong to Venezuela and Ecuador? If Snowden was CIA NSA, would he not understand simple logic? Going public prior to end destination safety would limit active passport travel ability due to block and deregulation. Why wouldn't Snowden publicly release info after he already was safely at final destination? Why then would Snowden route through Russia? Was Russia final destination? Was Russia true destination? Could Snowden be seen releasing classified programs intel from inside of Russia? What role did Brennan play in the Snowden leaks regarding NSA? What was Brennan's background regarding Saudi Arabia? Does the CIA hold blackmail on political leaders? Does the CIA protect those who protect them? Why are ex-CIA contractors running for office? How many ex-CIA contractors are currently in office? Hello, Adam Schiff. Once an agent, always an agent. Q. Whoa. That was my mind getting blown right there by all of this information, which a lot of it, it's not new news as much as it's reframed. Besides this Ted Cruz thing, which is crazy. First off, obviously reading this, it talks about how before the Republican nomination, were they spying on Ted Cruz because he was a viable contender for the nomination? I mean, you saw how far he went with President Trump. He was definitely the second in line there. So, wow. And then it gives us these stories which confirm back in the day the CIA was illegally spying and surveilling on Congress and members of the press and the Senate Intelligence Committee, of all things. The committee in Congress, in the Senate, that's supposed to be overseeing the intelligence community, literally being surveilled by the intelligence community and spied on. You can't make this stuff up. And then it's asking who ordered the surveillance. Well, you know, stuff rolls downhill, so you have to go to the top. Who's at the top? President Obama, his advisors, people at the heads of the agencies, John Brennan at the head of the CIA. Think about it. I mean, you guys can do math. You guys can put this together for yourself. I'm not going to tell you what to think. I'm just telling you what I think when I read this stuff. It says, what justification provided to authorize surveillance of elected officials? There probably was none. And then it asked, was it falling under the scope of a FISA warrant, or was it an internal to department, or was it outsourced to the Five Eyes? I'm willing to bet it was outsourced to the Five Eyes, because there's no way to track what happens. Reality check, friend or foe, we all spy on each other. Should we be doing that? Should we be spying on ourselves? Should we be asking and tasking other countries to spy on us to avoid our own laws? No, I don't think we should. And this is despicable to me. But and then the best question here is, was the whole Five Eyes thing just basically set up as a back channel surveillance apparatus to avoid domestic laws and congressional oversight? I mean, this is getting pretty scary if you think about the scope and what's going on here. Is there any way to monitor the key logs of a Five Eyes intel collection? Probably not. If they're in other countries, I mean, I'm sure we don't have access to what they access, as same they don't have the access to what we access. What ability do former government officials have to access this classified level information? Well, think about it. Hillary Clinton, Q alluded to this when it happened, when she did her little trip over to New Zealand, and she met with the prime minister there, and basically what Q was saying is, he asked us the question, why, or basically making the insinuation that she was accessing her the Five Eyes intelligence because once you've gotten that clearance to go look at the Five Eyes, that clearance doesn't go away even if you leave office. So technically she was able to do that, right? That was what was being suggested. And then of course, the next question, which is even more terrifying, says, how did she gain access to the highest level classification special access programs, which have like closed system access, meaning they're computers that aren't connected to the internet, that you have to go to literally on site? How do you transfer that to your own home remote server? That's a very good question. Do you think maybe flash drives were involved? Do you think maybe there was some other technology that was involved? I don't know. That should scare every American if you understand the scope of what that means. Also, it says, how did China locate primary CIA assets within China? Now, this is a very disturbing story. So, of course, here's the report. This is just one article I found. There's many out there, but it talks about a report that China killed or jailed at least 18 CIA assets in a huge intelligence breach. When? Oh, this was back in 2013. And who was the Secretary of State then, you ask? Actually, excuse me, it was from 2010 to 2012. Who was the Secretary of State during that time? Oh, you guessed it, Hillary Clinton. She was the Secretary of State from 2009 to 2013. So think about that. Just think about that. All right, what is Q saying here? You guys can do your own logical thinking there. How did China locate these CIA assets in China? How? Money buys power. It's disgusting. No punishment. Brennan by a Hussein administration regarding surveillance of Senate. Of course there was no punishment. They were probably surveilling at the behest of the administration, speculatively speaking. That's just the way it seems when you look at all the facts lining up. Logical thinking, and it gives this McClatchy article, which, like I said, talks about how Dianne Feinstein, the senator who gave a scathing speech on Capitol Hill about how the CIA spied on her, right? They end up deciding not to pursue any allegations, and nobody talks about it anymore. You don't hear any of these people bringing it up. Oh, remember that time you spied on us? Nope, you don't hear that very often, do you? I wonder why. When the Justice Department declined to pursue, and the fake news media limited the exposure, what would you expect, right? What other outcome would you expect? And when it talks about Snowden, this is a crazy story. So I'm gonna sum all this up without reading through it page by page. This is what's being alleged by Q, I think, or being insinuated to by these questions through this Socratic method. It is basically Edward Snowden worked at the CIA before working at the NSA. He was sent to the NSA in order to undermine its ability to effectively monitor global communications because the corrupt individuals, this is all speculatively speaking, at the CIA had basically hatched up this plan to enrich themselves while selling our country out to the highest bidders and other foreign countries, so they couldn't have a paper trail. So how do you eliminate the paper trail? You destroy the evidence gathering tools. And what tools were those? Those were PRISM and KeyScore and all of the secret NSA data collection programs that were being used globally at the time. And I'm sure they have new fancy replacements, but don't ever think for 1 second that everything that Edward Snowden ending up in Russia was a coincidence. Q wants us to think, okay, what country was involved in Uranium One? This was all around the Uranium One time. Don't forget that. This is 2013, right at the time Uranium One was taking place. So the CIA, think of this sequence of events as a hypothesis on what might have happened. The CIA wants to sell a large portion of our uranium to the Russians and enrich the political class who is backing them. They realize that if the NSA's massive dragnet metadata collection spy network or global surveillance network is up and running, they'll never be able to successfully pull off this Uranium One deal, given the direct ties of those involved to the government of Russia and the government of the United States and their involvement with different organizations and the obvious corruption that you could draw from looking at it. So, hypothetically speaking, let's say that the CIA wanted to knock that system out. Well, enter Snowden. You take a young, upcoming CIA officer, intelligence officer, who happens to be great with computer and networking, right? And then you train him to infiltrate the NSA. You send him on a mission to go infiltrate the NSA. And then as some sort of a gift to Russia, you give him and all of the intelligence that he's not only stolen but obtained through his own knowledge and training, you give him to the Russians. And then did anyone really think he was going to be, making videos about classified stuff when he was in Russia? I mean, they're not going to let him do that. They're going to make him give them all the information he has, and then they're going to sit him on ice, basically, meaning like keep him quiet and just put him away, like put him in a house somewhere in a quiet village, and you never hear from the guy again, right? That seems to be what's being suggested happen here. Was he ever going to go to Venezuela or Ecuador, or was he actually meant to end up in Russia? And think of where he went. He went to China and then he went to Russia. Think about that. Let that sink in for a second. He went to China and then he went to Russia. Just mull that over for a minute and let me know if anything starts ringing any bells here. So, it just goes on to talk about Snowden and Russia and all that stuff. And it talks about the connection between Brennan and Snowden. Well, of course, he was the head of the CIA at the time, and he was also the head of, he was the head of the CIA in the lead up to that, and he was the Homeland Security advisor for President Obama before that. Okay? So that's the position he was holding. What is Brennan's background in Saudi Arabia? So what was his connection to Saudi Arabia? It was his first assignment back in 1980. He was worked for the Directorate of Intelligence at the CIA. His first stationing, he was stationed in Saudi Arabia. And he spent almost a decade there. Hillary in Wonderland, ring any bells? Hillary and the Saudis? That's what this is all connected to, okay? Now it says, does the CIA hold blackmail on political leaders? Wow, if they do, I don't even know what to say. I pray that they don't, because that means we're living in some kind of fascist authoritarian dictatorship that's secretly veiled and thinly veiled underneath the guise of these three-letter agencies, which I don't want to believe that. It says, does the CIA protect those who protect them? I'm pretty sure that would be yes in the affirmative. It says, why are ex-CIA contractors running for office? That's terrifying again. Okay, we don't need ex-CIA officers who are ex-CIA contractors who obviously have an agenda, obviously can be controlled if there's blackmail involved and if they have this little club where they protect each other, right? We don't want them running for office. I mean, there has to be some legal precedents there you guys will tell me about in the comments that would preclude that. But I guess, yeah, I mean, the deep state wants to put their ex-officials into positions of power so they can continue to keep power. That seems to be what's being insinuated or suggested, speculatively speaking. Now it says, how many ex-CIA contractors are currently in office? Adam Schiff. Adam Schiff. I didn't know he worked at the CIA. Now things make a lot more sense. If this is in fact true, that Adam Schiff is an ex-CIA contractor, because Q says, once an agent, always an agent. Guys, we're getting the full leak here. This is the full rundown of the truth, speculatively speaking. The next one here talks about the Democrats and Hollywood, and this one I'm just going to read through. I'm not going to probably explain it as much in certain areas because a lot of it's self-explanatory, but let's just read it. Remember when the Democrats and the fake news media plus Fakewood, I think that's supposed to mean Hollywood, pushed mass fear that POTUS would start World War III regarding North Korea? Yeah, I remember. Now, POTUS has made peace on the Korean Peninsula with no further missile tests or uranium enrichment. Exactly. New narrative created. Refusal to provide coverage of successes. Remember when Democrats and the fake news media plus Fakewood pushed a stock market collapse if POTUS was elected? Yeah, I remember that one. POTUS economy policies, largest gains recorded in markets history, new narrative created, refusal to provide coverage of successes. So they just switch the narrative and they won't cover it. That's what they do. So now they use the Fed to increase rates to counter growth and project POTUS to blame. That's going to be their next upcoming thing. And the fact that it's in the brackets here in the metaphorical kill box means probably that President Trump, I should say, is going to put a stop to it. Remember when the Democrats and the fake news media plus Fakewood pushed complete economic collapse if POTUS was elected? Yeah, same thing. Lowest unemployment records in history, record jobs, GDP growth, new narrative created, refusal to provide coverage of successes. That probably happened twice. Then it's given another one here. It says, deploy and use racism, sexism, and every other ism to counter political black, Hispanic popular support. And that's something that, obviously it's saying it's in the metaphorical kill box. They're going to try to put an end to this, but this is a tactic, it seems. And I've seen it. I mean, you see it. Turn on the TV, turn on the news for a while. You're going to catch some ism that's being proclaimed about our president and how he's a bad orange man for doing it or saying it or living or breathing. I don't know. It says, why do Democrats and the fake news media plus Fakewood continually push the quote unquote impeach narrative if impeachment requires 2/3 of the Senate vote to enact? Odds of that, they're astronomical. There's no way you're going to get more. There's no way you're going to get 60 votes to impeach the president. Okay, or 66 or whatever. So, yeah, I don't know why they push it. They push it, I guess the obvious reason is they push it because it's their only choice to do it, to hopefully to convince enough people that it's true so that that President Trump will not be reelected, and then they'll retake power, and then they won't have to explain themselves or be subject to any of these investigations that have been ongoing for quite some time. Yeah, that all makes sense, right? Do they push this fake narrative to project a supportable project a supposed supportable with evidence wrongdoing to their base confirmation bias? Yeah, that's exactly it. They have a confirmation bias in their own base, which is obvious and pronounced. And that's all that is they're doing it to gin up their base and say, look, he's going to get impeached. It's supportable with evidence because enough media heads have said it's true. So don't forget that. This accusation is never supported by facts. Of course not. Groupthink, that's all it is. Look up the term groupthink and you'll figure that out quick. The list goes on and on. Panic in D.C. Why? What was lost? Power of the purse, meaning President Trump's in control. Commander-in-Chief of the United States military. They lost control of the military. Power to replace senior officials within crucial government position departments who can then replace senior, mid, low positions. Trickle-down replacement. That's what they're terrified of. Power to appoint Supreme Court justices. Again, they're terrified of that. What if Hillary Clinton had won and appointed 2 crooked Supreme Court justices? That's a great question. I'm pretty sure Loretta Lynch would have been one of those nominations, and we all know about the tarmac meeting and the golf and grandkids that they talked about, right? The last resort. Power to directly undo Hussein's previous executive orders, which harmed greatly limited the U.S. in many vital necessary ways. And that's just totally true. It's the only way we're going to undo some of these executive orders. Power to rebuild the United States military back to a global superpower, which is what we're on the way to do with the new Space Force. It's going to have nice, shiny spaceships. It's going to be awesome. Anyway, China payoffs bribe failure. So they failed. The insinuation here is that they tried to bribe their way into power and into political power in our country, and it worked for a while, it would seem, but not in the long run. It says power to enact laws by executive order to combat and protect our people. Of course, that's President Trump. That's what he's doing. Power to shift foreign policy, thereby reducing our enemy's ability to prosper and someday reign. Iran deal, Paris Accord, China trade, Syria. These are all like perfect examples. Giving billions of dollars to Iran. Giving billions of dollars to this climate change, whatever that means. Like just giving it here Paris, here EU, global government, whoever. Just take all of our money because climate change, right? China trade. So they steal all of our intellectual property and they kill us on the trade and they charge tariffs and taxes, and yet that's supposed to make us prosperous? That's supposed to make us successful? No, I don't believe that for one second. And then of course Syria, the whole thing in Syria is the pipeline. It is, there's competing factions. There's a pipeline that they want to run into Europe, and there's the Russians and there's the Saudis. And I can tell you right now that pipeline, even if we're not there, they're not going to get that pipeline built. Mark my words. Anyway, it says power to declassify crucial documents to provide the public with the truth and transparency. And if you're asking where the pipeline's going, I mean the pipeline from Saudi Arabia or Russia into Europe for natural gas, just to clarify, and other things. Power to declassify crucial documents to provide the public with the truth, transparency, power to give back, power to the people as intended by our founders, leader of the free world, President Trump. Oh yeah. Yeah, so that's it. So like I said, I'm not going to go back over this because we kind of went over it as we went. Now, the next one here is this Real Clear Politics article, which is talking about something crazy. So this is Alan Dershowitz. Now, he is on this show, I think it's Good Day, ABC or Fox, and he says that there are secret emails about underage sex allegations that will put prominent people in handcuffs. This is a crazy story. But if you read through the story, it's really quick, so we'll read it. It says, in an interview Thursday with Good Day New York, Alan Dershowitz pushed back against allegations that he had sex with underage girls through billionaire convicted pedophile Jeffrey Epstein. He said he is being framed and has emails that will put, quote, prominent people in handcuffs. And this is the same, in my opinion, lie that they're spreading about President Trump, too. And they're going to talk about that in this article. It says, quote, there are emails so far that are secret, but that prove not only that I was framed, but who framed me, Dershowitz said. It, quote, it names names. These people are going to jail once these emails come out because this was a total frame-up for financial reasons, and I can prove it and will prove it. Have me back on the show when the emails come out. Boy, it will be so interesting because there will be prominent people in handcuffs once these emails come out, unquote. It says, look as to the first woman who accused me, and this is Alan Dershowitz talking still. Her own lawyer admitted in front of witnesses that she was just wrong, that I couldn't have been in the places, he said. And the second woman here, this is Alan Dershowitz saying again, he said, is a woman who wrote to the New York Post claiming she had videotapes of Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, Donald Trump having sex with underage girls. The New York Post said, quote, we don't believe you. They wouldn't even publish her story, but she's one of the people. So this is a story, man. I don't know what's going to happen here, but let me tell you, whatever comes out of this is going to be crazy. So that could be leading to some big arrests. And Q says, get in line, Q. I mean, yeah. I mean, you're not the only one out there that wants these people to be put in handcuffs, especially if they're hurting kids like that. So, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see what these emails are. Pretty crazy. Now, the next one here is this status from Maggie Haberman, who is the conductor, the handler. And this is her Twitter account. Obviously, Q's suggesting this is some sort of coded message okay, that she is some sort of handler giving a coded message where she says on her Twitter, quote, "There is no smoking on this train. If you're found smoking, we'll assume you're on fire and take the appropriate action," unquote, says the Amtrak conductor. It says handler, conductor. Smoking can be bad for your health. Read the warning label. Deboard train and walk away. Once in the tunnel, there is no going back. Q. Wow. There's some secret messages going on there, and I don't even know what that's referring to. But we're going to have to wait, and I'm sure we'll find out. Future will prove past. But that's pretty much it. I'm sorry, another long video, but thank you for watching. Few ways you can help out the channel. Come here, click the big red subscribe button, make sure you hit the bell for notifications, watch these videos, share them on your social media, and don't forget to leave your thoughts, theories, and insights down in the comments because I want to hear what you have to say about all of this. Also, if you can, demonetization is real, and I depend on you guys through this website. It's a crowdfunding website called Patreon, Patreon.com. You come here, search Just Informed Talk, click this button to become a patron. It's a monthly donation. Give as little as $1 or as much as you like, and you set it and forget it and know that you're supporting this channel and the content creation that happens here. So I thank you for your generosity and your support through this website. And you know, it's pretty crazy, and I depend on you guys to help out, and I really am so thankful. Also, there's a GoFundMe I set up, which you can do a one-time donation through, and you can also do it anonymously if you're interested in that. So I'll leave links to both of these in the description if you want to support the channel. Another way you can help out the channel is to come over here and check out me on Twitter at Justin_formed, of course, Just Informed Talk on Twitter. You get all my fun, awesome, hilarious, funny, inspiring tweets for your pleasure and enjoyment. So I encourage you all to go check that out. And of course, without further ado, the best part of this show, my favorite part, the reason I'm so overwhelmingly happy to do this every time is because I get to share the word of the Lord with you in our segment here called God's Grace is Greater, where we talk about God's grace and how it is truly greater. For that, I want to share what God is to us, all of us. He is our good shepherd. And in Psalm 23, it explains exactly what being a good shepherd is. And as we go through these times of, these tumultuous times and these times of uncertainty where we see evil in the flesh, and we know that the stuff that we're encountering is beyond anything that really can be grasped as far as what kind of evil truly exists in this world, we have to remember who is our good shepherd. The Lord is our good shepherd, and we need to follow him. And I'm going to read these words to you, and I hope they inspire you as they always inspire me. But it's Psalm 23. If you want to read it, you can go find it in your own Bible. And it is the good shepherd. It says, "The Lord is my shepherd. There is nothing I lack. He lets me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He renews my life. He leads me along the right paths for his name's sake. Even when I go through the darkest valley, I fear no danger, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Only goodness and faithful love will pursue me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord as long as I live." Amen. Amen. That's it. That's all. Those words. Take them into your heart. God loves you. You're saved. You've been redeemed. You're blessed. All you have to do is open up the relationship, say a prayer, reach out to God. And remember those words. Psalm 23. Our Lord is the good shepherd. So that's where I'm going to leave it. I want to say thank you for watching Just Informed Talk. Remember, if you haven't hit that subscribe button, make sure you come here, click it, and make sure you hit the bell for notifications. That helps out the channel big time. But that's going to be it for me. I want to say thanks for watching again. My name is Craig. Godspeed and God bless each and every one of you, Patriots.